Please welcome Peter Berg. And Esso, very important collaborator on American Primeval.
He's my co-director. He was there every day. So he wanted to come and say hi to everybody. That's Esso, by the way. Good boy.
He's going to steal the show from us, but I feel like that's okay. That's really what
something.
that's what we bring him here for. I wanted to start by talking about some of the film and the historical inspirations for this, but then, oh, hi, you're my friend now. But then I heard you say in an interview that with Mark L. Smith, who is the creator of the show and the writer, that what the show really started by you handing him an ice axe and saying, make a show out of this, which I've never heard anything like that before. Please tell me about that.
So Mark L. and I had both been fans of Jeremiah Johnson.
Yep.
And I was interested in exploring kind of the Western space, but I wanted to do it from an adventure standpoint, a survival standpoint. And Mark L. came into my office, and I had a giant steel ice axe. And I just,
Have you used it before? Is it like a collector's
No, people
item?
give me weird things. I have so many axes and knives and arrows and hatchets and weird stuff. But I held this ice axe up to him, and I said, can we do this as a show? And
What did you mean by that, like when you say that?
I just wanted the spirit of, it was an ice axe, so it was a weapon on one side, but it was a tool on the other. It was like a hammer and had a kind of a claw at the other end. So it was a multi-purpose ice axe. And it just felt like adventure to me. And I wanted that spirit to be kind of at the soul, in the DNA of American Primeval. And when I handed him the ice axe, he looked up at me and smiled and said, oh yeah, I can do this. And so it was literally an ice axe that was the inciting incident in our creative journey.
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of other stuff came in.
Yeah, so Jeremiah Johnson, the Robert Redford movie that I think has become famous for just the gif of him nodding at the beard, which it's a great movie on top of that, but that's what many people know it from. But then there's also this Mountain Meadows Massacre, and that's a real story, a kind of contentious part of the history of the Mormon Church. You said you had both read Under the Banner of Heaven, John Krakauer's book, but the idea of putting those things together, I don't think everyone would think of. That doesn't feel obvious. So what was the moment you realized they belonged together?
Well, we were talking about setting and where to locate the adventure. And we were looking at Utah and parts of Wyoming, and we started looking in the time period of 1857, and then we started researching the Utah Wars, which I didn't really know that much about, a little bit. I certainly knew who Brigham Young was. And we started kind of getting interested in the Mormon component of that part of the country in 1857. And we started reading up on the origins of the Mormon religion. And then I went to Utah, to Salt Lake City, and toured many of the facilities there, their auditorium, and I got a tour of their museum, a guided tour. And at the end of the tour, there's a bookshop. And there was a book called Meadows Mountain Massacre being sold at the bookshop, which I'd heard a little bit of the Meadows Massacre, but I bought the book and read it. And, do you guys know what the Meadows Massacre is? Everybody any Mormons here that want to kill me right now? One, we could talk. I'm happy to talk about it. There was a book, which was interesting because it was being sold at the Mormon Museum bookstore, and it was a book that detailed, Richard Turley wrote it, and it detailed in extraordinary detail what that event was. And 150 men, women, and children were killed by members of Brigham Young's Army, the Nauvoo Legion, and some Native Americans who were working with the Mormons on that massacre. And the Mormons actually dressed up as Indians to try and divert the blame. It was a really horrific event that has been acknowledged by the church and was being sold in their bookstore. So we read that and thought that that event would be a great jumping off spot for our film, and that then Brigham Young could become a character in that film, and we could explore the power dynamics that were going on at the time between the U.S. military, the Shoshone Indian tribe, the Paiute Indian tribe, and the Mormon Church, which was, in that part of the country, was very dynamic at that 1857.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people watching the show would know that Brigham Young is a real person, but also Jim Bridger, who's played by Shea Whigham in the series, is another real character who was also in The Revenant as a child,
Yeah.
and when Mark L. Smith was a co-writer
Yeah.
on that. Like, what a great thread of history that you guys are getting to follow there.
Right, and that was Mark L., who had a little more meat on the bone after doing The Revenant. You know, he had a lot of ideas, particularly about Jim Bridger, which I think was Mark's favorite character. You know, and
He's got all the good laugh lines
yeah,
in the show. I
he's
think.
we have like 3 jokes in the whole series, sort of jokes, and those are all Shea Whigham and Jim Bridger. But the relationship between Jim Bridger, who was sort of the last great mountain man who had this big fort, and he had a very contentious relationship with Brigham Young, and Brigham Young wanted that fort because he knew that the U.S. Army was coming to get him. And he knew that if the Army was going to come get the Mormons, they were going to base at Fort Bridger. So Brigham Young desperately needed the fort to protect Salt Lake City. Jim Bridger knew that he had an asset that Brigham Young wanted, so they negotiated intensely. Bridger got the price he wanted. Brigham Young got the fort, and the second he got it, he burned it to the ground so that the U.S. Army couldn't use it. And that's one of the reasons I think that you could argue the Mormon religion is as thriving as it is today.
Yeah, we're watching it all happen. So you've got, you want to tell a mountain man story, and then you've got Taylor Kitsch, who you've obviously worked with many times before. Your relationship goes back to Friday Night Lights. And you've described him as not just someone who you like working with, but someone who's not a pushover, who might push back at you and challenge you as a director.
Yeah.
How did that work for you on American Primeval?
I mean, working with Kitsch always works well for me. We're like, a classic brother kind of relationship, and that dynamic is there where we first and foremost love each other and have been through so much with each other that it's almost like that, family love that exists. But then when you put that aside, we fight like bastards all the time. And he'll tell me, that he doesn't like something I'm doing. He thinks I'm taking a shortcut, or he'll challenge me, and I'll do the same thing to him. And I love that aspect of a relationship. It's unusual to get that in our business. People have to sort of pussyfoot around each other a bit, and take extra care not to, upset or offend, and so you end up, I think, swallowing some of your own truths. Everybody, not just directors, but actors, and everybody. The people don't have the luxury of an intimate friendship, and so with Taylor, having worked together for so long, we definitely have an intimate friendship, and I just love working with him.
Well, then you've also got Betty Gilpin as the other anchor of the show, and you haven't, don't have that long friendship with her, but you've also said that she really contributed to some of how her character develops. There's this, this woman out in this frontier that she doesn't understand and how she grows in that way. So, were you building that kind of relationship in a much quicker way with Betty to make that character?
Yeah, I mean, Betty is a type of actress who doesn't really give you the luxury of a slow burn friendship. She just comes in with so many ideas and so locked in, and in the very best way, very challenging to me to think about things deeper, to flesh out aspects of her character, to figure out with her how to help her navigate complex moments for her character. She's horrifically sexually assaulted in the 3rd episode, and Mark L. and I were both very honest with her about, in the early stages where we're still working the script, about wanting her involvement and helping us to all understand how you could rehabilitate a character like that enough to just keep going. And much less to survive and thrive and carry on. And Betty was like, I got you. And she would leave and come back with pages of ideas that she'd written down, and they were really good, and many of them are in the show. But Betty is an example of, in my opinion, just a consummate professional actress who really thinks things out, takes it very seriously, is there to make friends and does make friends, and I love her and her family forever, but she doesn't necessarily care whether we're making friends. She's here to do the work, and I completely respect it. It's like, if you and I become friends and end up going to each other's kids' birthday parties and stuff, that's cool. If not, let's go do some great work. And Betty is definitely that type of an actress, and I adore her.
Well, and this is the kind of show that really requires you to see it on the screen of the work and the conditions. We were talking earlier about how you guys are shooting outside all but 2 days of the entire shoot. Like, you were really asking everyone to get into the thick of it with you.
Yeah, so that was one of my goals, and our crew is so extraordinary, and I've had great crews in the past. This crew was different, and we had crew members who lost 35 pounds on this shoot. We're up on the mountain every day, and people fell in love and, are still dating each other now, and, hopefully we'll have kids and get married and do all that cool stuff. But there was something about our strategy of not going to soundstages, not going into parking lots with green screens, but we kind of said, and Netflix was really supportive of this, and that's not necessarily the easiest thing for them on many levels, not just financially. It's hard to control, 400 people up on the mountains with snowstorms and ice storms and rattlesnakes and wolves and bears and writer strikes and DJ strikes and actor strikes and like just lots of stuff. But we thought, well, let's do that. That'll be a cool challenge. And after like 70 days on the mountain, when we realized we had 60 more to go, it was like, what were we thinking? But to see a crew, and like whenever I would hire someone for American Primeval, the first question I would ask them for any department, hair, makeup, grip, electric, actors, I'm like, how's your body? Like, how are your knees? How's your ankles? How's your hips? How's your back? Like, are you up for this? And people that I never thought would make it literally came in out of shape, and you could see the transformations. Howard Berger, who's our incredibly talented makeup genius, Oscar-winning makeup artist, I think he lost 38 pounds on the shoot. And his wife was like, thank you. He's so hot.
That's how you're going to hire all your crews from now on. Is you're like, look, my plan.
Well, look, making movies it's kind of shitty work for crews. That we're in rooms like this for weeks on end, and people are away from their families, and, they're in these oppressive sound stages, feeling very little agency over much of anything, and it's not certainly not a glamorous way to make a living, to put it mildly. And I found that the challenge of Primeval and the opportunity for these incredible crew members to get out and work and be part of an incredibly beautiful terrain, and we saw beautiful sunrises and eagles and sunsets and beautiful snowstorms, and I was like, you guys really up for this? And they were. So I really am full of appreciation for this particular crew.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging work in any way. You're directing all 6 episodes. All of them have their own challenges. But in that first episode, with that massacre sequence that we've been talking about, for anyone who's seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It's not just this elaborate sequence where I can't even imagine how many people in it, but it's all these long takes. It's swooping through. It's following Betty Gilpin through it. Just, in the tiny amount of time we have, what was it like tackling that one incredibly impressive sequence?
Well, right. I think I appreciate you saying that. And I think the most important thing I want to convey to you folks is, obviously award season is upon us, and I think my crew deserves so many awards. But now everyone's talking about Adolescents, right? And they're incredible winners. Okay, right? You all seen Adolescents? Okay, hold up with the clapping. I agree. They don't need your clapping.
They're not
getting
here.
Plenty
He's
of clapping.
here.
That's a great show. But we were doing winners before they were doing winners, okay? I'm just trying to like get that into the
And you had
consciousness.
horses and arrows.
Yeah, they didn't have horses. They had two very talented actors in a little room, and the camera was spinning around. Okay, one drone that they. Okay, great. Okay, now look at American Primeval with the horses and the scalpings and the bears and like they're different. So
Different.
Yes, that won her before the great show Adolescence. Just remember that. Thank you.
There you go.
I love Adolescence.
So how were your knees at the end of those shoot days and your hips?
Yeah, I was. I had my team, my spiritual advisors, one of whom is here, who literally is with me every second of the day, and is just a good guy. I had great support. I had a sauna and an ice bath in my garage that I would go to every day after work. But like the crew, I think people like challenges. We want to be working hard. We want to get out there and feel like we're, flowing and working with a group of people and accomplishing something and battling elements and doing all that kind of stuff and creating art. That's why we're in this insane business. And I felt that way every day. And so my energy was really good. And I had good help.
Yeah, the best help. Well, as we were getting to the close, I wanted to ask you, as someone who's been, doing this a long time, we're in a room full of people who all work in this business. You mentioned strikes and weather and all the things that get in the way of making good work. You've got exciting other projects coming up in the future. What's giving you hope about the business right now?
I just look at where we're at today and the different platforms and the different streamers and the legacy media and even watching the studio. My friend Seth has done such a great job and it was fun for me to get to do something in that. But that's like kind of an interesting look at where we are as an industry. I just go back to in my humble opinion, yes, things are weird and people are watching things weird and we do all this incredible work and I see people on airplanes just watching it without even headphones and I'm like, what are you doing? But that's where we are and you can't fight that. And what I say to people is there's a lot of people making things today and a lot of different ways to get things made. And if your intentions are to make art, to create movies, television, documentaries, whatever they are, you can do it. And there's many ways for them to be seen. You just have to accept that this is the reality that we're in. If you're in it just to get famous or just to make a quick dollar, it's a little confusing and you're probably going to struggle. But what I tell people is to dig in on ideas and visions that you have that you really feel strongly about. Stay with them, not just TikTok videos or YouTube channels, but stay with things. Do the research, put the effort into the writing and the rewriting and take it to whoever you want to take it to, whether it's a studio or whether it's Netflix or whomever, and let them feel your passion. And if they do, you can get it made. And the advantage to me of some place like Netflix, when you look at the numbers that they are able to put up internationally in success, it's incredible and it's global and you get to reach a lot of people and I'm down with that.
Yeah. Well, everyone can watch American Primeval now if you haven't yet. Peter Berg, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.